Hey folks, welcome everyone. My name is Tom from the Battlefield community team here at DICE. You might have seen me online in the community as Stratford87, and we're here to talk to you today about Update 1.2. With me are Shashank, lead level designer, and Florian, lead game designer. Folks, welcome. What's going on? How's your summer been?
It's been good. I'm here in the office.
I mean, summer has been late, but it's finally here. I moved in with my partner, so I'm just busy moving in, unboxing, building stuff. Exciting times.
Yeah, it's my second summer in Sweden, so I'm just getting used to the Swedish life still. So folks, we're not actually live today. We've still got a lot of work to do before we head into Season 2 and the future updates. So we recorded this video a few days ago. Myself and the team are in the chat, so if you have any questions, drop them in there. We'll answer them for you. And with that, let's get into what's actually in Update 1.2. So, Florian, Shashank, we have an updated art direction for our specialists, a new player profile. Let's jump into what's going on today. So, Season 1, we're in 8 weeks now. We've got a lot of cool player feedback about the new map exposure. Shashank, how's it been for you and the team to see all that good feedback, seeing it finally live for players after working on it for so long?
I think it's very, very encouraging, like seeing how well it has been received. It's really, really nice. The map began as a concept where we wanted to see how much we could push verticality.
Yeah.
And I think we have nailed it, where you have gameplay happening on the top, you have gameplay happening in the CQC interiors, you have gameplay happening in the valley, and people jumping off the cliffs, flying down. Then you have the planes coming in, fighting into the in-between section, shooting them, people shooting them out, people using zip lines to get across, up and down, left and right. Thing is super, super nice. Also has a lot of, it's not a very big map, it's medium-sized, has a lot of covers, so we have learned a lot from the live levels, and then we try to apply it to this level as well. So really, really happy with what people are thinking about it.
Okay, that's great to hear. It's been one of our best received maps so far for 2042, so it's great to see. Florian, how's it been for you to kind of see that map play out and like playing it like live after all the playtesting we've done? You've been around with DICE for quite a bit, so how's it been for you?
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, when we were working on this level and playtesting it, and also trying out a new content for Season 1, it was pretty clear that this level would be a pretty big hit when it comes to design. You could really feel like, yeah, we've learned a lot of stuff from the previous levels, the previous content we've created, and that we really managed to put something together that really makes sense in one experience. And I mean, we released lists in Season 1 with the TV-guided missile launcher, and that one has also been very well received. It was very interesting to see, players doing loopings with the missile to try to hit helicopters. People also trying to take down the rockets. So we're very happy with the feedback that we've gotten so far. We're not really planning on making major adjustments to the launcher, for example. So it means it's in a pretty good spot. We're only really fixing bugs at this point on lists. So yeah, all in all, good Season 1, I would say, so far.
Okay, that's great to hear. And Shashank, I would love to hear a little bit more about like our process, about how we bring a map from like even a concept to live. For example, we've done playtesting. Like, can you talk more about the process, how we get from the concept of a map to playing it as players?
I mean, it starts with the pitch, right, where we want to make this level because it's going to fit in this part and it's going to give us this gameplay. That's how it starts. Then you have the part comes with the idea, they pitch it, we go with that, and then we just build it. Playtest is a lot. I mean, the levels we have right now, we have heard from the community where it's generally too big. That's not enough cover. So we know that. And the solution could be just add more cover. Like we said, it's not a silver bullet. Like just adding cover won't fix everything, right? Where if you look at the levels, where a level can be any size it needs to be, but it can only have so much content in it. We call it something as a asset count, where asset can be anything like the table, these chairs, these glass. It's all one asset. So if we add more cover, it needs to come from somewhere because the levels at launch are at max asset count, right? So that's why it takes time. It's not as easy as plop more things. That's an easy thing, but it's figuring out how do we take the level we have and then modify it to work. So one option is add more covers. Another option is the levels are too large. does it need to be that large? Do we need all the flags we have? Can we remove some stuff, make it a bit more compact, get some more instances back because we removed some stuff, and then take this instance and then put them into cover? And then the question is, what do these covers need to be, right? What can it be? And one train of thought is battlefield is battlefield, which means the levels are going through war. One feedback we got from the players is also that the levels feel very pristine and it's very clean. And one approach we have taken is, what if we show the progression in war where time has passed, the game has been out? How would the level look with more war tone look, progression of war? So that's what we have done. We have looked at if you can take covers and make them fit into the military concept where it's all mostly military. So it looks like the war has progressed, and we can also get covers with that, make the levels a bit more smaller where we can. So that's the route we have taken. And also it's not just about cover, it's also about line of sight, where if you want to go from A to B, if you can see across the map, that's not good either. So we also need to look at, it's kind of a macro space, whereas cover is more of a micro space. Line of sight becomes more of a macro. So what can we do with terrain? Can we add a bit more blockers? Can we add some hills? Can we add some rock pieces? So all of those combined together is what we're looking at. So that's why it takes time.
It's a complete package.
It's a complete package. It's not just
drop off a map,
adding more cover. Yeah.
And how does the internal, like we play test this internally a lot, like we play every map very often. How does that feedback from internal like translate into what we see in live? Like how do those iterations go from like, hey, this is the first time we let you play exposure internally, and the changes we make based on internal feedback there?
I mean, we all are players over here. We all like Battlefield, so people are brutally honest with their feedback. And we listen to them. I mean, we play it. People are like, didn't like this, change that. And we're like, let's do it. So it's very open and it's very honest feedback we get internally. And I'm very glad we get that from us. So
So exposure, season 1 map has been going great. The new specialist, you already talked about lists for a bit, Florian. What about the other specialists? Like we added lists to the specialist pool. How has that changed how you've seen other players pick specialists and the overall balance?
It's been very interesting to see lists drop into that pool of specialists that we have. When lists released, we saw our usage just go up quite a lot, which was to be expected. Of course, it's a new introduction. It's the new shiny thing, so players get to play it. And then she quickly stabilized around where we expected her to be, which is if you were to split perfectly all specialists into play time, she sits right where she needs to be right now. So she sits in a good spot. It kind of gets us to look at the entire pool of specialists across the board and see how others are doing. It's always a big challenge for us to try to get balance in a correct place when it comes to specialists. We have a lot of elements and criteria to think about when we design specialists. We have a lot of elements like the size of the levels, the type of game modes that we have. Sometimes we have big maps, sometimes we have smaller maps, sometimes we have some game modes that are linear, sometimes they're more open, and this makes it difficult to make sure that we have exactly the same usage of specialists across all the spaces. That's actually not possible. For example, you would tend to see certain specialists that are more fit for close range obviously play better when a map or a game mode or a combination of the two tends to allow for those specialists to play very well. We also tend to see some specialists that are always going to be enjoyed to play because their kit is very interesting. The best example I have is Sundance. For us, it's one of the specialists that is very, very hard to balance. And it's pretty rare when we don't have an update where there's no changes on Sundance, because we always try to get her to fit with the rest of the package. But her kit is so unique and it's a fun kit. It's not always fun to play against because on the receiving end, you're looking at a specialist that has a lot of mobility that can relocate very easily. So they basically has some of the advantages of what a vehicle would have. And if we nerf, for example, the wingsuit to the point where it's not as mobile anymore, then it becomes less fun. So we have a bunch of levers we can play with, but trying to strike that balance between it's fun to play and it feels balanced and it's engaging to play with Sundance or against Sundance is very, very tricky. we have so many things to account for essentially. We can even stretch that to, for example, thinking how does that fit into the portal experiences when you fit other things into the game. We have so many things to think about that. There's always going to be some specialists that will feel like stronger than others. Yeah. We also have a very different pool of players. We have players that are very experienced. We have players that don't really play so much. They play every now and then, so they're not the best players. And our best players can play certain specialists in a very specific way. You can also look at this from the other side of the spectrum, where, for example, Rao is one of our least played specialists in the game right now.
He's the least played, right?
It is the least played in 2042. And most of the players would tend to say that his kit is actually quite weak. But then when we look at the data that we're getting from the more experienced players, we find out that the kit is actually pretty strong. It's actually, when you can get some coordination with other players in your squad, it can become a very deadly combo. For example, you get a classic, I have someone playing Rao and someone else playing with the recoil-less M5, and then you can make sure that there's no helicopters in the sky all of a sudden. But for most players, I think we have a problem where the entry is pretty high when it comes to understanding how Rao works. It's probably not super well explained how does Rao work, so you end up doing a lot of trial and error to figure out, how do I play Rao even? Yeah. What's good about Rao? What are the things that I can hack? What are the things I can affect? What is it that I can't affect? And that step is basically what I would say blocks some players from really getting into Rao. But once you're past that, I think you will quickly find out that Rao is probably one of the strongest specialists we have in the game, just because of the potential and how much you can interact with so many things in the game.
So basically, your suggestion or advice would be like try out other specialist folks. Like Rao he's very good, but folks might just not know.
I think it also shows that we have some room for improvement for sure when it comes to how accessible the experience can feel. How is it to learn to play those specialists? I think you need a bit of hand-holding to understand, I can hack this, but not that. Those kind of things. And this is things that we're thinking about, obviously. Like, how can we make sure that we get those specialists back in the middle of the pack? So when we analyze the data we get from, for example, how many players are picking Rao or how many players are picking Sundance, it's a deep dive into what is it that makes this specialist weak or strong, and how they're used against different skill shells, different player types. And then we learn a lot about what's making the specialist strong or weak, and what could we do to improve those or to nerf them to some extent without necessarily hurting the certain player types.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing with the Shield versus the Sentinel.
Yeah, exactly.
How many people know about that?
Yep. So, like, Irish is a good example. Like, especially since exposure is basically the ultimate playground for Sundance. They can fly everywhere. They have a scatter grenade, which is good in close quarters combat, and we saw them played a lot. But Irish is actually a very good counter against their grenades, which most players maybe don't know. So, can you?
Yeah, that is for sure. Actually, Irish is also one of the lowest pick rates. It's gone up a little bit over time with Season 1. I think a lot of people have started understanding the power of the kit. Yeah. And yes, I would say when you play this specialist the first time, Irish, you press your button and you get a shield that you can deploy. But I don't think a lot of players go the way to discover that if you press again, then you also have access to the shoot-down Sentinel, which is very strong against pretty much any projectiles. From my perspective, it's actually probably a little overpowered, but it's because it's a bit hidden in terms of functionality. You don't really see people explore the gameplay around the Irish fully. But over time, as they learn about it, then you get to see people playing a lot more with Irish for sure.
Okay, so folks, a few good tips there. If you want to wreck helicopters, definitely check out Rao. If you want to counter grenades, like Iris is actually a very good pick with this gadget, so maybe give them a try. They're not picked very much right now, so hope you get to try that out. So about the update itself, there's quite a lot of cool stuff in here in 1.2. We have a new art direction for our specialists, we have a player profile coming, and we also obviously have the completely new reworked map, Kaleidoscope. However, before we dive in there, I would love to talk a bit more about some of the other changes we made, because there's a lot of smaller changes in this update. I believe, top of my head, a few hundred even. Florian, weapon balance. Let's go there. We changed the K30, the MP9, and the BSV in this update. Can you maybe talk us through some of the changes we made there and the reasons why we made those changes?
Yeah, so I'll start with the BSV.
Okay.
So we've seen that the BSV had an easy time competing with assault rifle. It's a very modular weapon. You can change parts to the point where it can become pretty close to an SMG, also a good assault rifle, and also a very strong DMR. So what we're trying to do is to make sure that it sits in its own category by making its full auto power a little weaker. So what this actually means is an increase in terms of like recoil. General handling is going to be a little more difficult, and it also gets a bit more dispersion, which means that the effective range of the weapon in full auto will go down a little bit. You will still be pretty good in close range, but once you will start going a bit too far in range, then you will probably want to actually swap to a DMR. And speaking of DMR, the BSVM is also like a pretty good DMR right now in 1.1. And what we're doing is adjust the drop-off damage range of the high powered rounds, so that it starts a little earlier, so that the DM7 really has its space to compete. We don't want the BSVM to really feel like it's always a better option than the DMRs. Else the DMRs don't really matter, right?
So in short, I should expect less folks to come charging at with me with a BSV in close quarters combat.
I think you'll still have a decent amount of people with the BSV, but it will probably be the opposite. Like the longest range will go down a little bit.
Then we have the K30.
Yes.
It shreds.
Yeah, it's a tricky weapon. It's a very high rate of fire weapon. The MP9 is pretty close to that as well. Yeah. High rate of fire. So we're making it a little less spiky in general in close range to increase survivability. We're also keeping an eye in general on its performance past close range, so looking at medium ranges. We're not really doing any changes right now when it comes to that, but we're evaluating what we do, again, with the same intent to make sure that every weapon classes still feel like they have their own spaces. So like SMG is mostly a close range oriented type of weapon. Assault rifle is the versatile type of weapon that deals with medium range and can be doing okay in close range and kind of all right past medium range, but not the best at everything, right? So yeah, we're keeping an eye on those as well.
Okay, thanks. Shashank, like out of curiosity, how does like weapon balance play into how you review maps or how you design
it affects us a lot because the weapon range affects the scale of the level, right? Yep. So if you have a CQC space, we need to know what is the range of a weapon. So there shouldn't be a case where we build a CQC space and the weapon ranges say, hey, an SMG is really ideal between 0 and 15, and the space we build is 30 meters big. Then it's not really a CQC space. So it's really tied in between weapon range and the size of a flag space we built. So it really goes hand in hand. Okay. A bit tricky thing for Florian especially is with this game especially, we have big levels. Yep. And then we have smaller levels. So it makes his life very hard where he has to balance things for varying level sizes, which is quite a challenge.
I would say, with 2042, if we were to compare to previous games, our general engagement range of any weapon type has kind of scaled up. So you would say, for example, if we would consider close range in Battlefield 5 be 15 meters, it could become 25 meters maybe in 2042. I'm just putting a bit random numbers, but the general idea of like the range going up. So what happened at launch is that we have weapons that become more effective over ranges. And then now we offer maps that are a bit shrinking down in some cases, more levels that offer close range spaces. So we tend to see people gravitate towards, of course, the options that will be more effective within those more restricted ranges. Yep. So things like the shotguns, things like the SMGs become more prominent. So we have to take a constant look at how they perform over time as the game also evolves in terms of direction. If we're shrinking things down a little bit, we need to make sure that maybe weapons do need to follow that as well when it comes to how they perform within those same ranges.
Okay, so as teams, you work together quite a lot to like make sure this balance is.
Oh, for sure. Like we have a metric list, right, where we know how long SMG works, what's the DMR, shotgun. So we know the distances, then we try to build the levels kind of which matches the distances as well. It's a back and forth, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. moving on to a next change, and we've had quite a lot of community feedback about this one. It's aim assist for controllers. It wasn't working very consistently, and I believe we made some improvements here. Florian, can you talk us through those?
Yeah, so one of the things we realized and we found out with a lot of player feedback is that there was great inconsistencies when it comes to the aim assist activating when you were tracking a moving target.
Yeah.
At times when players could move a bit too fast, the aim assist would just not really work for a duration.
Okay.
It would be pretty on and off and a bit spotty at times. And we found out the root cause of what was causing that, and now it should be fixed in 1.2. So hoping that the experience is a lot more consistent this time around.
Okay, that's great to hear. So folks, if you noticed you had trouble with aim assist, give it a try after the update. Let us know if it's working better for you. Then we also had a lot of feedback about the HUD in general and player icons maybe cluttering the field of view of players, and I believe we also made some very good quality of life updates here.
Yes, so one of the feedback we've gotten quite a lot is that icons, and specifically like the cases of revive icons, can sometimes be in the way. For example, you're trying to track an enemy player, and that enemy player tends to be right behind a pretty big revive icon. That's problematic. You can't see the target. That target may be able to see you. So we've been working on a system that dynamically adjust the transparency of the icons based on where they really are on the screen. So the closer the icon will be to your crosshair or to your reticle, the more transparent you can get. And we made that system fully controllable by the player, so they can decide how transparent the icon can get and how not transparent they are towards the edges. This completes the package that we have of other options that we've had since BF5. Actually, we had before Season 1 an update where we introduced some of those options again. And this is just the next step to offer a more dynamic system that allows you to have transparent icons when they really matter and less transparent icons when they actually still matter in the sense that they give you a message, but they're not going to be right in your face in a critical moment where you need to shoot someone.
Okay, so that sounds like a very good quality of life update, actually. And so players can check this out themselves via the options menu.
Exactly.
You can see it all there. Great. Then we have a rather nasty bug here. I'm going to call it the spawn stance, which means I could spawn on a friendly player and this player would be lying prone, but I would spawn standing up, which means I could be immediately under enemy fire. Florian, I think we made some fixes there. Can you talk more about what we did here?
Yes, so we look at the stance now of the squad member that you've chosen to spawn on, and if that player is standing, you will be spawning standing, but if that player is prone, then you will also be spawning in the same prone stance. In that case, that will make sure that you can just spawn safer, and you also don't blow your teammates' cover.
Yeah. Okay, that's a great change. And I think related to this, we also made some improvements to just being prone in general, where sometimes the character models would clip through walls.
Yeah, that is correct. Sometimes your legs would tend to clip through walls, so it means that sometimes you could also get shot through walls.
Okay.
And there's also some occurrences where you could also take damage behind cover when it comes to like small containers, and that's specifically for explosion damage.
Okay.
So we fixed that.
Explosions are more contained.
Nice.
Okay, so brings us to the first new feature in this update, the player profile, which is pretty exciting. Players can check out their own stats, mastery levels, etc. Much requested feature. Can you talk us through what's new and how
so it was a highly requested feature, something that players have been used to have as well in previous games. So you'll have two pages. One page that will allow you to just track your current rank and your progress towards the next rank, tracking as well what's the next thing you're going to unlock in your progression path, and also looking at the different missions that you have and how close you are to completing certain missions. And the second page will be more about your personal stats. So it will be things like kills, revives, deaths, KD ratio, all of those cool stats, playtime, a bunch of very nice stats to see how you're doing on the battlefield. And this is data that has been collected since the release of the game, so it's not just like starting from zero, it's your current stats, essentially.
Okay, that's great. So, folks, if you have an awesome KD ratio, send in those screenshots. We want to see it. Vehicle balance. So we made some changes here. Helicopters, I believe we balanced the Wildcat. So for the let's start with the stealth helicopters. Those 30mm cannons were really shredding, and we've seen their pressure on infantry being quite a lot. So I think we made a change there to their overheating.
Yes, the overheating is getting more a bit faster, I would say. So you will overheat more often now when you're just spamming that cannon over time, which should diminish the raw power of the 30mm cannons and make those infantry players feel a bit more safe and not under constant bombardment from those helicopters.
Okay, that's great. I think the cannons, they were able to shoot for quite a long time, and that goes down faster now, so you need to reload or recharge. What about the transport helicopters? We've gotten quite a lot of feedback about those as well. Their cannons are also pretty powerful. I think they've also been rebalanced.
Yes, so we've made some changes in 1.1 already with the 50mm cannons, and we've still seen that their usage was actually quite high, and it was very easy to get kills on the infantry. So we gave them another pass, essentially, trying to reduce their power even further. So yeah, they will be a bit weaker against infantry now, and hopefully infantry should feel a bit more safe.
Okay. So folks, we updated the stealth helicopters and the transport helicopters. Basically, in short, they should be less powerful against infantry, and if you pick RAW, maybe it's your time to shine now. So, Shashank, your team also reviews vehicle count on maps. We've made some changes in the past few updates to how many vehicles can be on every map per category. How has it been going for your team? What are you learning so far?
I mean, it's pretty good. The reason why we had to do this was what we saw was players in the air could harass the players on the ground a lot more than we were wanting it to happen. So, and also, like Florian said, they had too much firepower. And infantry is just trying to run around, trying to figure out what's going on. So what we could do from the level side was reduce the number of air vehicles we have. So in the last update, we reduced the number of attack air you can have at any given point. But we still saw it was still quite OP with the transport. So I think with this patch, I think it's going to balance it out where we have fewer numbers of things in the air, and also they're not as powerful, and we have buffed the Wildcat. So I think it's a really good balance as well. Something else we're looking into on the level side is categories, where what can we do with the categories? As an example, if we decide, hey, we don't want to have a transport air, what happens is because right now the transport air and the MAV are in the same category, we take out the transport air and the MAV. Same thing with the tanks. If you say, you know what, we don't want to have any heavy tanks. If you do that, we also take out the Wildcat. So something we're looking into is, can we make it more granular? Where can we have more categories and then separate out it even more? Again, not promising anything. It's something we're looking into. We're just having a thought about it. But can we do something more about it?
I think players requested often that they want the helicopters and the jets to be separated. So basically that is something that you're currently reviewing now.
Same thing also we're looking into even more blue sky, where you play breakthrough. And then we want to have a map available for you. The question is, if you do that, you also have the transport air available for you. The question then is it a good idea where you're playing breakthrough, which is a much more linear experience, and then you have a bunch of players just flying behind you and then dropping behind you? It breaks the front lines, which we really want for breakthrough, so we can't do it right now. So again, it's all this thing we're looking into, but it's really early stages, so we can't promise anything.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to maps. So we recently ran our core feedback initiative where we talked with our players about map design. We've learned a lot from our players. Can you share what's the takeaway for the team?
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, where it's a big task where you have the cover to fix, you have the line of sight to fix. Like I said, players need to know where to go. I want to go there. Okay, so now you know where you go, which is usually a flag in our game. I want to go to flag A, I want to go to flag B. Okay, how do you get there? You need to find a path. So A, you don't know where to go. B, you don't know how to get there. Should I go left? Should I go right? Are there good paths which takes me there? Okay, now you know how to get there. The last one is the path really empty? Is the path really long? Which is what we have right now, unfortunately, where we have flags which are quite far away, about 400, 500 meters away. It's too long, right? And also there's not enough cover on those paths. So it's, like I said earlier, it's a package of things we got to fix.
Okay. And the first map we are reworking, which is Kaleidoscope, folks. It's available right now, so go check it out. Why did we take Kaleidoscope as the first map to rework?
I mean, we had to look at the whole range of all the levels we had. And we know the levels like Kaleidoscope, Renewal, Hourglass, they come up all the time. Like, hey, what can we do something about this? We could do something about all of them. It's just how much time will each one of them take. Hourglass is a massive level to fix. It's going to take some time. So we're like, okay, let's start with the smallest level. What is that? Kaleidoscope. It's also a very infantry-focused map. And I think that's something we should fix ASAP because it's purely infantry. And then whatever we do in that, we can learn from that and then apply to the other levels as well. So that's why we picked Kaleidoscope. Smallest map, infantry, we can start with that.
Okay. And I have to ask, the map has been reworked, Kaleidoscope. Can you talk a bit more about the changes, like what's new, what did we move, something to look out for players?
For sure. As I said earlier, where we have a limit of assets we can have in a level. It's a fixed number. We can't have too much, else we hit performance. With this level, we couldn't really scale it down because it is quite small and we couldn't cut anything out. What we could do now is scale some things down. So what we looked into is like, do we need as much foliage? Do we need as many grass, trees, plants? So that's what we're kind of stripping out. And what we've done is we've taken all that and we built a new flag. The biggest issue we had with Kaleidoscope was breakthrough on Gen 5. The first sector was really brutal, where the two flags were really far apart. And what we are saying is, what can we do to fix the first sector? Okay, can we bring the flags closer? So that's what we've done. We have made a brand new flag on the southwest side of the level, and that's the first sector. So that's what we've done. We've also done a big military cover pass, so you'll see more covers, which look like military, has a military theme.
Yep. Sandbags.
More sandbags.
Not more sandbags, more concrete stuff. And also sandbags. So it's a running joke right now.
Okay.
So so much more military presence. The level looks much more war-torn, doesn't look as clean. There is more destruction. Also what we've done is on the northwest, where you have the amphitheater, when if you're playing Breakthrough on Gen 4, it was very hard to even get to the amphitheater because it was quite flat. So what we've done over that is we just taken terrain and just bumped it up so it breaks line of sight. So as an attacker, it gives you a opportunity to actually get to the flag and capture it. That's what we've done.
I think especially the terrain elevation, like we've already shown some screenshots to the community previously for what we're doing for Kaleidoscope, but like the terrain elevation is probably the hardest one to see. So I'm very curious, folks, how that plays out for you, because it's not something that you would easily spot.
It's not very obvious.
It's not very obvious, exactly. What about, personally, your favorite change? Like, what's your favorite new thing about Kaleidoscope, Florian?
I would say the advanced military outpost that just feels like a really strong close quarter spaces where infantry feels like they can navigate nicely. It's very clean, very nice spaces. Definitely that one, yeah.
What about you, Shashank?
Yeah, same. It's has a very peculiar name to it. It's the forward operating base.
Right.
I always forget. But that's what we call it, and that's what it is. I think it's super nice because we just redone a flag. We just changed it completely, which initially it was a hard sell because it's so much work. It sounds very easy. Just take the flag out, put a new flag. But to reach the quality of art fidelity we want and the layout as well, where if you make a new flag, it needs to play good. You can't make something which is worse than what we had. So it was a bit like, do we have time for that? Do we have scope for that? And we're like, we should do it. And we did it. So I'm super happy with that.
Okay, great. Like, I don't want to say forward operating base for me personally, but also forward operating base. Like, it looks like a lot of combat is going to be taking place there. Very excited to see you try it out, folks.
It's very, very nice in Breakthrough, where you get to navigate between that objective and the other one that is like pretty close at all. Because before you needed so much time to go
across
between
the bridge.
Between both objectives. So what you would usually do is either pick one or the other, but you would never really go between the two. And here you have like a very nice movement between the two objectives, where if you feel like you're losing one, you can just run and try to contest the other one, whereas before it was like, guess it's lost.
Been there, done that. Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so great. That brings us to Renewal, which is the next map we are working. How's the work going? Like,
Really good. So with
Okay.
Kaleidoscope being the first one we reworked, we had to learn a lot. What can we do? What can't we do? Performance, limits, things like those. And we have taken that learning and then applied it to renewal. Renewal was interesting because we were kind of at the limit of instance count. So what we done is we had a look at the whole level. It's quite a big level, way bigger than Kaleidoscope.
Yeah.
Like, okay, what should we do with this? First thing is, does it need to be that big, right? Are there spaces in the levels which are not as busy? Spaces which players don't play that much?
Yep.
Spaces which we could lose, gain some instance count, and then use that instance count across the whole level. So that's what we've done. So we removed some spaces of the level, made the level a bit more linear. It's not square or round anymore. It's a bit more rectangular. And then taken all the benefits from that and added more military assets everywhere. We have, again, looked at the breakthrough first sector on Gen 5, which again was quite hard to capture. We made it a bit more linear.
Oh.
I think it looks fantastic where the military aspect on this level looks really, really good now. It looks like the war has happened. People have come in. It looks really good. And on the green side, we added just more cover, more stronger lanes. There's a lot of cover on the interiors of the research station as well. So I think overall, I think it's going to be really, really good. I'm really hyped for the breakthrough on this map and see how it plays.
Exciting. And that's coming in season 2, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
How do you decide which spaces you're going to remove to try to get those new and improved spaces?
Yeah, I mean, it's never fun to remove something that people have spent time, effort, blood, sweat, and tears into. But we look into stuff like the distances. One thing we had with this map is called a big map, and we would see, okay, if we had to connect all the flags we have currently, can we connect them in a decent distances, right? And then we found some flags which are really far apart, and like there's no real nice way to connect all of these flags together. They were the outliers, if you would say. But that's what we've done. We're saying like these are outliers. We could live without them, but we can't live with we need to have these flags because they connect A, B, C, D, E, F kind of in a flow, just random alphabets, right? With these ones, you really have to get like kind of go out of your way to get to them. So it's not something which you see on your way. So we are like, it's out of the way. We can remove it. It'll make everything else much better, much tighter. So
we've improved the gameplay flow across the map. It's just much easier to navigate through it. And I guess we saw a lot of players sometimes just get lost on those areas. There wasn't really anything there. They didn't find the combat there.
Yeah, basically you would go there and then like, now what do I do?
Yeah,
right,
run back.
Yeah. Whereas you always want to have a flow where you go to flag A, and then from flag A there's obviously flag B. From B there's obviously flag C. Sometimes it happen like I go to this flag and now I'm far away from everything. Then you just redeploy, which we don't want to happen.
And from like the design perspective, and I think what Florian just asked as well, you make those areas on the map, like you put time and effort in it, but like then you have to cut it. Like does it hurt as a designer to see something nice? Because it looked nice to just now it's gone.
I mean, it's a really good space. Like personally, I like the warehouse space which we've taken out. Everybody likes because it's a really good CQC space. But then you have to ask yourself, will it make the level better if you didn't have it? You just have to be honest about that, right? And I think once somebody realizes it's going to make everything much better, it's not such a hard thing to lose where, okay, I put some time into this. It's a really good space, but we can live without it. So.
Okay. And obviously Renewal isn't the only map that we're reworking. Can you talk more about what's coming after Renewal and which other maps we are reviewing?
Yeah, I mean, I can't say much. For the future overall, we're looking into Orbital. We're looking into Manifest, those 2 levels. Don't have any dates, don't have any order, but those 2 are the levels we're looking into right now. And like I said, we take all the learnings we took from Kaleidoscope, all the learnings from Renewal, and then apply it to these 2 levels as well. So
what we just discussed earlier, like that's what players can expect as well for these further updates. Okay.
I don't want to spoil too much, that's why.
Yeah, okay, so it's coming.
Yeah.
Great. Specialist art direction changes, Florian. So we've given them a new look. Can you talk more about why we changed the look of our specialists and what players can expect from that in game?
I think that the common feedback we've gotten around the look of the specialists is that they don't really feel like they belong to this world that feels actually now more war-torn as we're moving towards a more grounded world that feels more militarized and where war has happened. And those specialists also kind of feel like more pristine, I guess. In a way, they need to feel like they've been part of the war, that they've experienced the war.
Yeah.
And before they haven't really felt like this at all. So we gave them a bit of a facelift in general, and it's still work in progress. But yeah, they're going to look war-torn, like they actually have been here, a bit more gritty looking.
Yeah.
You will see with, for example, Boris, that they will definitely feel like they've been more into the into the war. I guess one that we're getting quite often is the look of McKay. I think now it kind of feels like it has been to war and not so funny looking anymore in a way.
Great. I have to ask. We've updated some of our specialist looks that are out right now in this update. So go check them out in game yourself. What's your favorite new specialist in terms of looks after this update?
It was already Boris before, and it's still Boris, but Boris for different reasons now. It looks cool, but in a different cool. So yeah, Boris.
Don't want to say Boris, but Boris.
Yeah, Boris.
Okay, Boris.
What
about you?
I'm in Falk, so Falk for life.
Okay,
but
Falk for life.
I think Boris looks super cool.
Yeah.
His hair looks super nice now.
He looks badass.
Yeah.
Boris has got the looks now. For me personally, like I main McKay. As you just mentioned, he maybe didn't look as serious before, and like McKay is done chopping wood. Like he's ready for action. He looks lethal now. Like he's going there. Great. Update 1.2 is our final update for season 1. The next update that you can expect is update 2.0, which brings season 2 to the battlefield. Before we close off, Shashank, Florian, do you have any final remarks about the new season? What you're looking forward to?
I'm super hyped for the new level that we are going to release. I think it's one of my favorite levels right now we are playing, because we have learned a lot from the live levels. Like we said, we want to make smaller levels. We want to have levels with more cover. So that is all of that is in this level. So I'm looking forward to what people think about it, the direction we've taken with this smaller levels, compact. Still does 128. It does all the good stuff, but it's in a smaller package, has way more cover. That's what is super nice. And yeah, looking forward to the next map update, renewal. Let's see how that plays. So yeah, over to you, Florian.
What about you, Florian?
Yeah, I'm excited about the new content we're going to deliver to our players, but also fitting into where we're trying to drive the games when it comes to more smaller spaces, those kind of things, and general quality of life improvements to the game that just makes the game feel tighter and tighter after every updates.
Great. So folks, update 1.2 is out right now. Florian, Shashank, thanks so much for being with us today. Hope you're having a great rest of the summer. Folks, if you have any feedback, find us on Discord, forums, or Twitter. Thanks so much for being here with us today. Hope to see you next time.